We have on tonight's show an author of a new book that's coming out about spiritual abuse in the Mormon Church. The book is titled Shattered Trust. The author is Lila Tueller. Welcome to this exciting episode of Mormonism Live. Hi, Lila.
Hello, hello. Hi, Bill and RFM.
It's great to see you.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, this book is called Shattered Trust. Now, there's a subtitle as well, isn't there?
There is. It says, now I have to remember it. It says right off after the Shattered Trust, it says when religion causes harm, when religion causes harm. And then there's also another, a longer subtitle under that. We could just show the cover of the book.
Yes, there it is.
There it is.
Shattered Trust when religion causes harm.
Right. And then it's
personal accounts of survivors of spiritual abuse and finding freedom and joy outside of Mormonism.
Kind of. That's actually been changed, but it's similar to that.
So it's available soon. It's available on July 21st. Is that correct?
That's right. That's the date that I have planned for it to go live.
Well, today is July 9th. That's 12 days away. Is there any way that members of our audience can order or pre-order your book?
Yes, there is. If they want to get a copy reserved, a pre-order, they can get a discount. I'm offering a 15% off of Amazon's list price.
For our audience?
For your audience, yes.
Holy cow.
If they go to that link right there, and hopefully it's a hard one to memorize.
I'll just say, Lila, it is if folks go down into the YouTube synopsis of the episode, so down below the video you're watching this in, you will see that link in there. And also it is in the live chat as well. And I did pin it also in the live chat. So if you just go to the very top comment, it is there also.
Awesome. Yeah. And what you'll do is you'll go to a landing page and then you can enter your email there. And that way I will be able to contact you directly to find out what you want to get. If you want to get a paperback or a hardback, then I will sign it and send it to you as soon as it is available. And in the meantime, you'll get a free ebook that you can read on your phone or whatever. So that comes with entering your email.
Fantastic. Now, Lila, there may be some members of our audience who don't know you or who you are. I want you to explain who you are in response to this question, all right? My question for you is, Lila, why you and why this book?
Okay. Why me? Because I decided I wanted to do this. I decided it was time, at least in my mind, to let people tell their stories about their abuse situation in the church. Now, Mormon Stories and you guys and a lot of other podcasts, do some of that where people get a chance to share. But I wanted to increase that with a book where it would be, something you could have in your house. And these are people who reached out to me with their summary of their story. And I have compiled that into a book along with some other ideas about how to recover from religious trauma and spiritual abuse. And, I think part of it is, my dad was a general authority. He was in the first quorum of the 70 back in the early, the 70s and the 80s. He was well known then. And he and my mother authored several books that were conversion stories. They were called No More Strangers, and there was 4 volumes, and they were conversion stories. So this is kind of my answer to that. This is deconstruction stories.
Interesting. Well, we'll see if it goes past the first volume, maybe up to 4.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, so I did get quite a few responses, which was great. And so, I think it's an interesting read. I think there's definitely some colorful stories in there. It's probably rated R. There might be a little bit of language. There might be a little bit of, shall we say, SA or some those kind of things in it. So just be aware. Trigger warning for anybody who is sensitive to that. But this is the real deal. It's raw. It's real.
Lila, is there anything about your life in particular or where you come from that makes you want to, obviously, it's a lot of work to put together a book, and you've gone through it and you're reaching the culmination. It's almost released, but I've got to think that there's got to be something that impels you to this issue. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, I think it would probably be my experience, my own experience, and friends and family, and just seeing that, so many people are feeling something in their body. They know what they know they've experienced something, but they may not know what it is. They may not have the name for it, but it is something that a lot of people are carrying around. If they've spent any time in Mormonism or other, as Bill coined, high demand fundamentalist religion, Mormonism isn't the only one. There's a lot of people that have been damaged, and there is a lot that you have to sort of heal. And you know how they say, if when people leave Mormonism, they can't leave it alone. I think there's a reason for that. It's because there's trauma from it, and you don't just forget trauma and skip off, the next day feeling healed. This is something that affects you deeply. It becomes a part of you. It's part of who you are. It's in your DNA. It's your lived experience. And it has deep trauma that needs to be healed. And people don't always have a name for that, but it's a real thing. And ask any trauma counselor that speaks to people that have gone through this, that are deconstructing a high demand religion, and they'll tell you they have PTSD from trauma. So it's a real thing.
Yeah. It's a really dismissive thing to say, isn't it? That somebody can leave the church, but they can't leave it alone.
Yeah. Well, it's like expecting, I liken it in the book to having a cancer that spreads throughout your whole body. You don't just remove it in one, little cut and take it out. It has spread now into every system of your body. And to expect you to just be able to forget about that, you pretty much have to do spiritual chemo. Like, you have to slowly extract it from your memory, your body. You may never, I don't think we'll ever extract it from our memory, but we're hoping that it gets easier over time, right? Become more and more able to function and put it in its place and learn how to manage it.
Yeah.
What it's done.
And I think too, Lila, because these things often happen in childhood, we're young, we don't really know how to make meaning out of the world yet. We don't really know what these events exactly mean. And it may be years into adulthood before we really start to process it. I'll just share with the audience. And I won't go into detail here, maybe another place, but I had something happen in the first grade that was highly abusive. And it took me years later. It was only just a few years ago in therapy where therapists asked the right question, and it got me going into my head and figuring like, oh, there's this thing. Now I remember. And I reached out to my dad to make sure that my memory was accurate. My dad remembered the event at the time and could attest that it happened. And so I had to start working with it as a grown ass adult. And I think there's so many people out there. When I learned that 33% of women are sexually abused at some point in their life, and a lot of those are as children, it was unfathomable to me that the number was so high. And from that moment on, I learned that in like late teenagers that was the number. And when I learned that, it gives me pause that essentially everybody around us is dealing with something. And And about a third of us, at least, because some people don't report things, are dealing with this specific thing of sexual abuse.
Right. Yeah. So that there's a lot of people walking around with trauma in their bodies.
Yeah.
And you wonder why we get triggered by things and go down a rabbit hole sometimes and don't handle it very well. And it's because we're still carrying it. And it actually takes a lot of work. You
I
know?
want to ask you about something specific there in a second here, Lila. But it
Yeah.
does occur to me that one response to this age-old saying about they can leave the church, but they can't leave it alone. I guess the flip side would be to say, so if a guy escapes from a crowded building that's on fire, would you tell him he shouldn't go back and try and save the rest?
Probably, yes.
That's the flip side, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but what I want to talk to you about, because you brought up the thing about traumatized, triggered, all this stuff, just when you think you're out, they pull you back in. And I got a phone call from you. It's been a couple of years ago now. And I think it was a Saturday morning. And you were very upset about something. And you had just become triggered by something, even when you thought you were completely past it. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I think so, yeah. I think it was the patriarchal blessing thing. Yeah. Yeah, and we actually did a podcast about that, you and I and Martine, because we both had the same patriarch. It was Eldred G. Smith, who was the patriarch of the whole church, right? And we had them 6 years apart. She had hers before I had mine. And we compared our patriarchal blessings. And they were almost word for word the same. There was like a couple of brief little deviations. But for the most part, they were virtually the same blessing. And what I realized then was, oh, so that's a sham too. Like it just sort of hit me out of left field, because when I got my blessing, it was a big deal. And I poured over that thing my whole life and wondered what this phrase meant, and like twisted myself into a pretzel to try to make it apply to me somehow and have meaning. And it helped me like make decisions about who I married and how many kids I had and what I did, in school and just all of that. And then I realized, oh, he just pulled that one out of a hat. He probably had, A, B, C, and D. And he pulled mine, which was maybe patriarchal blessing C. And he happened to pull that same one out for Martine, 6 years apart. Like it just really blew my mind. I like you said, it was like, bam, I got hit in the head again with the concept that it's like every little piece of it is painful and hurtful and traumatic to deal with. And you have to deconstruct it, each little piece. It's easy to say, I think, I remember thinking, oh, it's all BS. The whole thing. Like the temple, the garments, the word of wisdom, the law of chastity, just all of it. And I realized, oh, good, I can just sort of toss it all into the garbage and go on my merry way. But it doesn't work like that. At least it doesn't in my experience, because you keep getting hit with things where you realize because Mormonism demanded that it be a part of our life from morning till night, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, from birth to death and into the eternities, because it demanded that. We didn't demand that. It demanded that of us. We realized that this is a major lifestyle that we now have to upend and start over from. And you're, back at square one. What do I believe? Well, I don't know now. What are my values? I don't know. I used to know. I don't know anymore. What happens after I die? No idea. Where did I come from? I don't know. Is there a God? I have no idea. Not the God that I thought. Surely not that. So like, it just affects everything, that was a long answer to your question.
I remember there were two things going on with you, and I've been there before, and I think I shared some of those examples with you on the phone, that it wasn't just you. I think this is something that's bigger than the both of us. I think a lot of people have this happen, that they think they have put everything in, you said, the garbage, or put it outdoors, or wherever you put things that you don't plan on using anymore. And you're living your life, and then all of a sudden, something as seemingly inconsequential as a patriarchal blessing comes in, and you find out, wait, this wasn't really from God. Well, you would have thought that idea would have gone out in the trash years before, right? But now all of a sudden you find out, no, it hasn't.
Yeah.
It's still with me. And in some ways, I don't know if it's people who leave the church, you can't leave the church alone, or the church, you can't leave the people who leave the church alone.
Right. I think it's both.
And you were dealing not only with this issue, the patriarchal blessing issue, which was overwhelming to you, but at the same time, you're dealing with the issue of, why is this bothering me? Why should this make me upset? And trying to understand that.
That's right. That's right. You're asking, why am I even the least bit concerned about this thing that I should have known was garbage a long time ago? And I think in theory I did know that, but it wasn't until I realized, oh, not only is it just not really a thing, but that guy played me. And he played everybody that he gave a blessing to and pretended he was channeling it, right, from the Lord specifically to me, that it was all very personal. And I think it just all of a sudden hit me. No, he just memorized something and spit it out. Now, I'm offering grace to him now because I realize he got put in a really uncomfortable position. They're expecting this man to, like I just said, channel some prophecy for each person that walks in and sits in his chair. He's got to pull a rabbit out of a hat. And he has nothing up his sleeve, right? So he has to come up with something out of thin air that's generic enough that it could fit to pretty much anybody. He can't be too specific, because then somebody could say, hey, you told me I was going to have 5 kids and I only had 4 kids. So what happened? It's got to be, he had it down to a science, and no wonder he had to memorize these things, because the expectation was ridiculous to ask a human being to perform that kind of a show.
Mm-hmm. And in a way, the patriarch's job is to tell the members that God, in an individualized and personal blessing, is telling them that they will be an absolutely faithful, 100% Mormon for the rest of their life.
That's right. And these are the blessings that you will get if you do that. And it's all the wonderful things that everyone wants, right?
Right. All those blessings. Okay, so let me see here. I've got a few more questions for you. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about your book specifically, Lila? How long is it in terms of how many stories did you collect? And do those end up being categorized, subcategorized in different areas, or what?
Yeah, they're kind of broken into different categories, topics. There were themes that I saw come up. Some were LGBTQ themes. Some were women's themes. Some were just basically abuse, like actual physical abuse that happened to them. There were just different themes there was also people of color was another theme. So, you've got this church or this institution or system that is actually, when you really boil it down, it's a narcissistic system. And what it does is it manipulates all the constituents into believing that the narcissist, who is really just the brethren, it's the entire leadership, the narcissist is going to take care of them. right? But actually, they're not. They have no intention of taking care of us. No intention. They want our money. They want our faithful obedience. They want our love and our adoration, and they don't allow us to speak anything bad about them. They don't allow us to like argue or come up with a different narrative. We have to follow them implicitly and almost exactly, or they will excommunicate us or punish us in some way. Whether it's not excommunication, they'll do another punishment where, oh, you can't take the sacrament now for 6 months until you stop doing X, Y, and Z, or you stop talking bad about us, or you stop, whatever it is. So it's extremely controlling and manipulative, and they paint themselves out to be benevolent. When you realize and you peel back the layers, once you step out of that system that you're in, which is like, it's kind of like a narcissistic relationship where it's like a dance that you're doing with the narcissist. They've got you in a place where they want you. And if you step out of that, suddenly it's like the blinders come off and you can see it for what it really is. And you can see what they had you doing and how false that narrative was, that they were pretending to be this benevolent, caring leader that really cared about the members. And you realize they don't care about the members, especially if you're complaining or if something bad has happened to you, if you've been sexually molested. There's horrific stories where the leaders will just try to shut you up and they don't want to hear it. And they certainly aren't going to apologize, which they demand of us. So the whole thing is just, I think it's my phone that's buzzing. Sorry, I silenced it, but it's still being normal.
You're very popular.
Anyway, so yeah, I think it's like once you take off the blinders, you see it for what it is, and then you're stuck with a choice. And for me, these are the choices. You either just shut up and keep playing the game because you don't want to cause trouble, you don't want to get in trouble, and you don't want anyone around you to know that you're having trouble, because now they won't trust you, right?
I think it's so much more pernicious than that. What I mean by that is, let's say you're born in the church. I'm lucky I'm a convert. RFM's a convert. I think it was easier for us to go like, that doesn't really make sense in certain moments, certain kinds of behaviors, right? But when you're born in the church, you're taught unhealthy boundaries as healthy boundaries. You're taught that consent doesn't matter. You're taught that obedience trumps your inner voice, that your inner voice needs to align with these grown adults that you don't even know. They're stranger men who have worked their way to leadership at the general level and worked their way into leadership at the local level. And so you have so many ways in which the world, including your parents and the family around you, taught you that the world worked. That is the most unhealthy way that the world could work. And you were taught it was the right way. It's the Lord's way. And so you don't even know to question it. It often takes decades for members of the church to even begin to question the things because they were unquestionable. They just took it for granted.
That's right. Well, people will say we were brainwashed, but really that's exactly right. We were, from the time we could have thoughts in our head about it, we were taught a certain narrative and told it was true. It was true. Our parents got up and bore their testimonies. Our, aunts and uncles and cousins, in a lot of cases, everybody told us, yep, it's true. And they bore their testimonies. And so, I have a friend who says, why did you buy that whole thing? Like, you bought it hook, line, and sinker. How could you not see it for what it was? And I get why they think that, but unless you've been groomed from the time you're a little baby, like in nursery, until you're an adult. Unless you've been groomed like that, or even if you join later, it's so hard to see the forest for the trees. It's the air you're breathing, it's the water you're drinking, and everybody's telling you it's true and bearing their testimony and crying and feeling the spirit. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, I think Mormonism, by which I mean I heard a number of times the same message given in Mormonism at church and other manuals and places. There's a message, and it's prevalent. And the message is, in its basis form, you don't leave the church just because you get offended. Now, we've all heard that, right?
Yes. And that's
But what it ends up meaning is that there is no amount of offense or abuse that an individual can suffer that is enough to justify their leaving the church in the church's eyes.
Yes, that's exactly right. And you will get demeaned if they think that's why you left.
Yes.
They will ask you, oh, well, did you get your feelings hurt? Did somebody hurt your feelings? Yeah. And then they can brush it off as, oh, they're one of those that got their feelings hurt. They never had a testimony. They never really believed. It's the no true Scotsman fallacy, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering about that, because over and over, there's just these stories that are told from church history. Was it Martin Harris making his way out to Salt Lake City, or was it one of the other, the apostles and Brigham Young? Was it Thomas Marsh? And, he finally shows up there. He comes back to the church, and he gets there in conference time, and Brigham Young just points him out and makes a huge joke about him in front of everybody. Do you remember that story, Bill?
Yeah, it was Thomas Marsh that you're referring to, and I don't remember what was said, but he definitely sort of
about how he doesn't have more than one wife. I got all these wives. He can't even have one.
Yeah, it's all about shame, huh? That's what it all goes back to, is to make someone feel bad for having left for a moment. You're not really allowed to question. You are a lazy learner. You are the chaff. You are the tare. You are under the influence of Satan. Those are the things that we all learned about everyone who stepped away.
Yes.
Yes, you shouldn't drive it.
Sorry.
No, I was just going to agree with him about this and say that it's not just the story, but the story is told for a certain reason. It's not just told to show what an asshole Brigham Young was, although it does that effectively.
Mm-hmm.
It's a message. All the stories that Mormonism tells are messages to the members. And this happens, in every culture, right? Stories come about for a reason, because they carry important messages to the members of the culture. And this is no less. In other words, you suffer whatever it is you have to suffer, and you endure it. Even if you're being chastised unrighteously by the president of the church in front of everybody else, that you sacrificed everything to move to Utah, okay? And that's your job as a Mormon.
That's right. That's right. And so I think what it does is it shames us into submission, into saying we believe, even if we don't. If we have questions or doubts, we keep them quiet, because we don't want to be seen as, oh, that person that's treading, thin ice and who has been deceived by Satan.
What is it? Let me ask you, because Lila, I understand that you've come to the point where you're very open about your doubts, your questions. Although I don't want to forget to ask you the question. Let me just ask it right now. Do you have any concerns? I know there's some members of your family who are in the church, some who are not. Do you have any concerns about the publication of this book and the impact it might have on some who are in?
How did you know? I haven't been able to sleep for the last week or more. I have not been able to sleep well, because I am concerned. I have 4 kids who are still in and 3 that are out. And the 4 that are in have been very patient and loving with me. All of them have been, but the believers they put up with me because they want to have a relationship with me. They don't want it to be severed because of this. So yes, I am concerned about it. And I even the beginning of my book, in the introduction, I actually dedicate a section to my kids and my grandkids, telling them that I know this might offend them, this might hurt them, that they might be angry at me. And I try to explain why. And my hope is that at some point, someday, even if it's just one of them, I have 10 grandkids right now, even if it's just one of them that says, thank you for making it okay for me to leave, because you had the courage to do it, then that will be enough. Even if the rest of them are mad. Sorry.
Yeah.
You know,
I haven't read the book. I read one of the chapters. It was excellent, I must say. But the rest of it I have not read. But I'm guessing from the way you're framing things, I mean, you're Lila Tueller. I've known you for years, okay? And the way it's not combative. It's not saying everybody gets harmed in the church. It's not saying everybody should leave. It's probably, you correct me if I'm wrong, it's presenting it as these are some stories of some people who did leave the church or who experienced spiritual abuse in the church.
Yeah.
That is something that I would think everybody in the world could rationally accept, right? That in any organization, you're going to have like a religion, spiritual abuse. People will leave because of it, okay?
Yeah.
All I'm trying to say is that you're producing this book, which really should not be that controversial in terms of its existence, right? The fact that there are members of your family and people who are not members of your family who will look at this book or may look at this book as a threat or an attack or something that they're ashamed of your having written, I think is a hallmark of Mormonism's cultiness right there.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to have people feeling that way about Methodism or Catholicism. But Mormonism, all of a sudden, it's not, wow, Mom, you published a book. Fantastic, wonderful. You become something that is a burden to them and an embarrassment because the church is so high demand and so fundamentalist.
Exactly. You got that. You nailed it. And what it does is it labels me immediately as a sort of there's like a scarlet letter, you know. I am
Author.
now dangerous.
Sorry, the A stands for author.
Author.
Yeah.
But I'm now dangerous. I am menacing to them. I am not what they thought I was. Somehow now I am the enemy. And
yes,
I don't want that. These are my dear children who I adore. I have amazing kids. Like,
they have an amazing mom.
well, I didn't create, I mean, I gave them bodies, but they came and they are who they are. And I don't want to harm them. But like I said, and like you just said, this doesn't happen if the system isn't somehow flawed and narcissistic and damaging. If it's not cult-like, people can leave with their dignity in other churches.
Otherwise, we would sit and we would listen to the people who have been harmed in our faith, and we would go, what can we do to prevent the next generation from being hurt? How can we prevent what happened to you from happening to someone after today?
Right. Right. And instead, they just don't want to hear it. They'd rather bury their heads in the sand.
It's almost like they're protecting their own mother, right? Like the faith has interwoven itself. The Methodist doesn't feel this way. Even the Catholics, I know so many Catholics are like, yep, our priests, there they are, messing with the kids. We got to knock that stuff off. But in this religion, if you criticize it at any degree for the things it does, the believers come out and protect it like they're protecting their own mother's good name.
Yeah, that's true.
And it strikes me that this is another flip side, okay? This book and the response that you expect, we know you'll get it. You've already experienced things like this before. It's not your first rodeo. And so the flip side of this is the reaction, the negative reaction to saying something that is just people having, abusive experiences related to a church. which is going to happen where people are involved regardless, right? Mormonism has a few extra bells and whistles, granted, but they're having this reaction. And this is proof, I think, and I want people out there who aren't members of the church to understand this. This is evidence of what I've told you before, which is that one of your jobs, maybe your main job as a member of the Mormon church, is to always say good things about the Mormon church and put it in the best light. That is the prime directive. This is the opposite of that. So Lila's not doing this. And this is what happens when you don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to worry and you have to be afraid that you might harm someone deeply, because this is not a Sunday observance church. This is it envelops your entire life, like I said a little while ago, from the 24/7, 365, from the moment you're born till you die and into the eternities. This church is interwoven into all of that, and they want to be. That's their goal. And that is because when they do that, they can manipulate you and they can usurp your obedience and your commitment and your money and your time and all of that. They have you by the neck or by the balls or however you want to say it. And it takes, so here's another point that I wanted to make tonight. And that is that, and I'm not patting myself on the back. What I'm doing is patting everyone who sent me a story on the back, including RFM. It takes an amazing amount of courage to leave this church. If you've ever really believed it, if you ever really tried to live it, if you never really cared about it to begin with, it's not that hard. But if you've done what they've asked you to do, and that is to involve your life in it and dedicate your life to it, then to leave requires a huge amount of courage and an ability to say, come what may, my integrity is worth more to me than what people think of me. Because your integrity is on the line with the members, even family members, friends, all your, in Utah, it's your neighborhood. It's all your community. They will turn on you. And you are now blacklisted. So you lose all of that. A lot of times you lose your own family members. So you have to be willing to do that and face that, because you know that what this thing is harming you or harming others that you care about, and it's just wrong. That takes a lot of integrity. It takes a lot of courage and determination to do that. Not everyone will. A lot of people will just quietly be PMO for the rest of their lives.
And that stands for?
Physically in, mentally out. And I think a lot of people do that. And I understand, because it is a huge price. And not everyone has the privilege I have. The privilege I have to be able to leave it is my dad is no longer here and my mom. So I'm not hurting them, at least unless they know about it from, where they are. I'm not harming them. They would have been devastated to see me leave. I wasn't the first in the family though, but I don't have a spouse that's still in and saying, what are you doing? Why are you leaving? I married a Mormon girl. You can't do this to our marriage. You can't do this to our relationship. I don't have that. I do have the children, but as their mother, I am trying to set an example for them, because that's how strongly I believe that they are in a very unhealthy system. And if I can set the example for them, even if they never forgive me for it, I will. Because it means that much to me. And I think a lot of people feel the same way I do. they just can't stay. Once you know it's not true, and if you believed it was, it's very hard to just, float along once you know that.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah. I think that's very well put. Hey, I've got a couple of clips from President Eyring that I thought of when I knew you were going to come on the show and what you're going to be talking about, and I want to get your take on those. But before we do that,
President Cryring?
yes, you know the guy.
Yay!
That's the
I'm so
guy.
excited.
But first we have, and hopefully we can keep you on the screen as well, Lila, but we've got Lindsay Hansen Park joining us to talk a little bit about Sunstone coming up.
Yes.
Lindsay, how are you doing?
Hi guys. Sorry for the weird interruption.
Hi, Lindsay.
Oh no,
Hi.
it's a
You
perfect
don't know me,
segue.
but I know you.
It was seamless. Absolutely seamless. So Lindsay, are you busy? You must be very busy. What? Oh, Bill just put something on the screen. This must be the Sunstone conference page.
Yeah, it's a busy time of year. We always do Sunstone the end of July, early August, so you can always know it's the same weekend every year, and it's kind of the rhythm of my summer. So we're in full symposium mode. You guys are coming out this year, both of you.
Yes.
So I'm excited to see. You're gonna do a party and some presentations and hang out at the University of Utah with us. So yeah, do you want me to just tell your viewers?
Yes, and let them know what they can do to register and come join the fun if they want.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, go to sunstone.org. We have a symposium that starts Thursday, July 31st to August 2nd. So it's 3 full days. The first day is on Thursday night. We have our keynote speaker, and every year it's the same tradition. It's hosted by sponsored by the Smith Pettit Foundation, who generously support the symposium. Their one caveat is that the keynote speaker that kicks off the symposium has to be a non-Mormon. So we always choose a non-Mormon, and the idea is to bring outside ideas into our community. And this year, we're really honored to have a scholar that I really just love and respect, John Turner. He did the Brigham Young biography, and now he has a new book about Joseph Smith out, a new biography, and I haven't read it yet. But I do think he's an amazing scholar. So he's going to kick off our keynote on Thursday, and that's free and open to the public, which means you can just show up and come. It's at the University of Utah Student Union, and it's a beautiful building, and it's a great night. So come on out for that. That starts at 7. And then all day Friday, all day Saturday, as you can see on the screen, there's just a host of presentations. We have all the folks that come there. You guys will be there. Like I said, I'll be there. John DeLynn will be there. Alyssa Grenfell will be there. Natasha Helfer Parker. Just a whole slew of Mormon scholars and clinicians and thinkers and scientists and artists. They all come together this one weekend and commune and present. And it's a wild time. And we get all kinds of questions like, is it faith promoting? Is it for ex-Mormons? We have the whole spectrum everywhere from Mormon fundamentalists who come. There's always a polygamous group, Christ Branch Church, that sells their pickles and their canned goods, to ex-Mormons and atheists and never Mormons. There's everything in between. It's one of the very few places where I think everyone comes and practices pluralism and tolerance, which I think is a very refreshing thing in the climate right now. And it's a place where every view gets challenged. So if you can hang with that, then you can hang with us. And so our idea is the best ideas and the best way of living are formed in community and in conversation with each other. So we try to bring all different kinds of perspectives and let people have conversations. So that's what we're about at Sunstone.
Thank you so much. I mean, it's very exciting. And it's 50 years. Is this the 50th anniversary?
Yes, it's our birthday. So it's 50 years. We're celebrating it. We have a gala, which is an extra ticket. It's a dinner ticket Saturday night. So if you want to come to that, we're having some of our early founders, including a lot of people don't realize that Peggy Fletcher Stack, who is the award-winning Pulitzer Prize Tribune reporter, she was there. So she's going to speak about that. We've got a few people who helped found it, Scott Kinney and Albert Peck, and some of the really old guard who have been there for a long time. And so, yeah, it's going to be it's 50 years, celebrating 50 years of Mormon thought and scholarship. And I know the community has been so important to many people on their journey. So now is the year to celebrate that.
It is true, is it not, that not 50 years ago, but maybe 49 or 48, the LDS Church issued a warning to its professors and other members to not attend the Sunstone Conference?
That actually happened in 1991.
Whoa, much more recent.
Yeah, so it was the Statement Against Symposia. And when Sunstone started in the 70s, it was this idea of like, Mormons were finally going out of state for colleges and getting a taste of the world religions and thinking, well, wow, the Catholics have all of these, deep theoretical discussions about their theology and cosmology and culture. All these other traditions do, religious traditions. Why doesn't Mormonism? And so it kind of started with this idealistic view. A bunch of students kind of from California and Berkeley thought that they would get a Mormon calendar and raise money with a calendar to have this symposium, and they did. And so it started off sort of just idealistic, like we can talk about anything in the church. But as it started to gain more and more popularity, and of course the ideas became a little bit more dangerous, the church felt threatened by that. So they came out with a statement against symposia in 1991. They didn't say Sunstone, but we were the only symposia around at the time. And so the apocryphal story is it went from thousands of people to like 300 overnight, and people got scared, and they called it the chill, the freeze. And that's when we see the purge, the September 6th happening in 1993. Scholars, the majority of scholars who have been excommunicated have come through Sunstone's doors at some point. So let that be a warning to you all. But I think we're really proud of that because, independent thought and free thinking is what makes a healthy community. And if you don't have that, you don't have healthy communities. And so we are a place that has kept that torch alive for 50 years before the internet, before any of that. And so it used to be that people had to sort of sneak around like in trench coats and hats and meet in secret, to talk about their faith issues. But now it's a lot more open because of the internet. But Sunstone is still a place where people can publish their stuff, talk about the research. You guys are going to talk. Or do you want to talk about what you're talking about this year?
I want to hear about Bill.
Well, I'm going to go into detail about the snout of Anubis and some other things with the Book of Abraham that in the last few months, we've done some episodes on the Book of Abraham, and things have caught my attention that relate to the snout of Anubis, that relate to some other issues that I don't think have been highlighted before. And so I think it'll be a lot of things that have been covered in the past and some new insights around those. So I'm excited.
The snout of Anubis. It's a tasty dish.
My favorite RFM panel was the very first one where you did the great reveal. Do you remember? It was so controversial because people were like, oh my gosh, he's going to reveal who he is, your identity.
I know. And I didn't want to do it because I knew everybody was going to be so disappointed. Seriously. No, truly.
That's not how it went down. That is not how it went down.
Totally. But I still have, and I had a screen grab of it, and I want to use this on Friday night show, okay, Bill? Because what happened, or maybe I'm going to put it on a slide for the Sunstone, because 6 years ago, Jim Bennett, with whom I've become fast friends since, he apparently was there, and he took a screenshot and he put it up on his Facebook page. It's got me with the light behind it, right, with my shadow up upon the sheet.
Oh yeah,
talking. And underneath it, without a hint of irony, as far as I can tell, he has written, "This is the cultiest thing I've ever seen."
Now look at him.
Really? Stay awake a little longer.
I mean,
Damn.
we have seen some culty things in our days, I would say, all of us collectively. So high bar, I guess.
And sometimes with people behind curtains, sometimes that kind of thing happens.
I don't know what you mean. I don't know what you're referring to.
I just want to know, is it more culty or less culty to have a hole in the curtain? that things can go in and out of.
That's more culty.
I think that's more culty. So I think he's seen more culty things than what he was seeing with me.
Well, you know, life is long. The symposium is long. We can always arrange for random hands through curtains. Actually, no, shut it down.
Better not.
Lindsay, I know you're very busy. Do you have anything else you want to say before you've got to go?
No, just thanks for having me. And I hope everyone can come out and support. It's 50 years of really incredible scholarship. I think anyone that's been through a faith crisis and has relied on, even podcasters, all of us have built our work on these scholars who've come before. And so it's a celebration of that. So if you want to pay it forward, Sunstone would really appreciate it. We're a nonprofit. We're just a tiny nonprofit. And so if you can support us, this is the best way. Show up, pay for the ticket, come meet folks, join the community. It's really great. It's really great to rub shoulders with people and talk in person. There's something really special about that. So yeah, if you can support us that way, that would be fantastic.
Lindsay, if somebody's not able to make it, but they want to pay the way for someone else, do you guys have any sort of program where somebody could like pay it for a ticket and then someone else could get in the door that doesn't have the money or something?
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, absolutely. You can buy a ticket for someone and register for that. You can just email grace@sunstone.org and tell her it's a scholarship. You can leave a donation. And then, of course, we put all our audio up for purchase right after the symposium as well for 6 months, and then it goes free online. But it's just sort of a way to help support and keep the lights on. So yeah, any way you guys can help, we're always looking for support. And also speakers. And we have a call for papers that opens in September and closes in March. So if you are out there listening and you feel like you have something to say that hasn't been heard before, this is an opportunity to do that. You submit it through our call for papers in September.
Cool.
Love it.
Awesome.
Thank
As
you.
long as your name is not Dives Lazarus.
That's right.
Okay.
Funny, I will say, I mean, we have a pretty broad spectrum of who we allow to speak. And if you have heard people say, and I'm talking about polygamy deniers, that we have rejected their papers, that is not true or
I
accurate.
hadn't heard, but dish.
Yeah, we've been accused of like censoring the polygamy deniers, and we just haven't had their papers submitted. So
So it would be the polygamy deniers making the ruckus, obviously.
yeah, I mean, historically, they and I aren't simpatico, so we have very different opinions. But because I believe in pluralism, Sunstone would be the place to engage those ideas. You know, like it's a respectful forum to do that and to disagree respectfully. So yeah, I think that's the tea that I'm bringing there. We've been accused of like denying people or censoring people, and if anything, we are guilty of being too broad in what we allow. I mean, we've had all kinds of 50 years of open forum. You wouldn't believe some of the stuff that we've hosted. So I actually think that speaks well to the Mormon experience. I talked to a faithful Mormon scholar once who said, he respected what we did at Sunstone, but he was interested in legitimate Mormon experience. And I was like, oh, we're as legitimate as they come. He was referring, I think, to a polyamory session. And this was, of course, before Mom Talk and the TikTok. So it was like, that's not a real Mormon thing. But as we now know, it's quite the Mormon thing. It's like the defining Mormon thing right now. And so, for as broad and crazy as sometimes our sessions get, it's kind of cool because you get all kinds of things I would never even think of. And that's kind of the allure of an open forum.
Well, there are so many people speaking. How many are there? It's like 4 or 5 are speaking at once.
Yeah, we have concurrent sessions and then we have some keynotes. And so it, like I said, there really is something for everyone. It's hard to define it. I mean, there's historical stuff, there's analytical stuff, which is what I think Bill's is categorized as. There's like Mormon celebrities that are there. There are clinical stuff. There's theological stuff. There's a woman who does a sound bath that people really like. So it's just like so broad. It's hard to define. Whatever people want to talk about, we will host, so long as it's within.
As long as it's not polygamy deniers, you've got it in for them. I hear.
Not. I mean, we actually, Marianne Clements, who is a scholar, is going to talk about why engaging in that debate is important. So I'm interested in hearing what she has to present on that. She's not a polygamy denier, but she believes that we should engage it in good faith, and which is in line with our values at Sunstone. So we'll see. But yeah, I've heard that rumor floating around that we've been denying them or restricting them, and it's just, that's a persecution complex that I think we can just set aside. That's not, if you submit it and it goes through review, there's a good chance we'll allow it. So.
Well, let me tell you, a persecution complex is the only thing the polygamy deniers have going for them.
Well, it's not the scholarship, I'll say that.
I will say, Sunstone.
Ooh,
I know.
that's a hot topic. They would definitely want to fight. Those are fighting words.
They definitely do want to fight, and I will say I don't fight about that kind of stuff. My record is clear. I've spent a very long time putting down what I think. That hasn't changed. I've looked at the evidence. That hasn't changed. I've looked at the evidence quite a bit, and in archives personally, and that hasn't changed. And I respect the journey that they're on, but I don't think it's a scholarly one. I think it's theological.
It's a desperate one.
There you go. Thank you. Yes, exactly.
Now,
Enunciated my feelings exactly. It's not a historical debate. Theirs is a religious argument.
Yeah. And you know what? We host plenty of those too. I know a lot of fundamentalists who we disagree theologically on all kinds of stuff, but I can, have perfectly fine conversations. I think my issue with some of that discourse is it just becomes a personal attack. I believe I was famously called out for wearing a tank top, which is why my history wasn't solid. And I was like, I don't think that's how peer review academia functions, but maybe.
I will say Sunstone is a place you can run into maybe more than one prophet. I know that Steve Breezy's been there in the past. Denver Snuffer has been there. So
yeah, it's a weird brag, but it's true. Prophets, self-proclaimed prophets, and all different kinds of Mormon groups, and that's why it's a good weird and wild time. Oh, and we're doing Mormon trivia at Gilgal Gardens on Friday night, which, if you know Gilgal, that's the Joseph Smith Sphinx park, and that's a good time. But if you want, you can go and you can watch. But this is for like the nerds of the nerds. Like, we nerd out hard on this. So yeah, if you want to join us, if you think you know Mormon history or Mormon polygamy, show up. We had a team of polygamy deniers playing. Well, I would say half of them were polygamy deniers, and they did pretty good on their history.
I think you should have had all the questions be, and Joseph Smith married this plural wife on what date?
No, it would all be all about William Clayton's diaries being forgeries.
He was very busy.
He was very busy, and we pick and choose, I guess, which ones are forged and which ones aren't, but neither here nor there. All right, I'm being petty. That's not what I came on to do. I came on to show the values of the Sunstone, but yeah, thank you for engaging.
Absolutely. This was fun. This was fun. By the way, that group that you said is out there at Sunstone, it's a smaller group. It's a polygamous group.
Yeah, Christchurch.
Yes, actually, I found out they don't really practice polygamy. At least that's what Michelle Stone says.
Really? I haven't heard that.
That's
argument.
supposed to be a joke. I'm sorry.
Oh, I see.
A little too
like
deadpan.
Yeah, I've been to their commune in Tonopah, Nevada, and I would say otherwise. So
Okay. Well, that doesn't make any difference. Michelle Stone knows
the
otherwise.
argument would be that Brigham Young is to blame and not Joseph Smith, and of course that's true. So Joseph Smith is not culpable in any of this. It's all Brigham Young.
Joseph Smith retains his status as Golden Boy.
Yeah.
All
but
right.
it still doesn't work. I'm sorry. It doesn't work because this is the Brighamite church. So if they're blaming Brigham for it, why are they still believing? I just don't understand that.
Yeah.
Because again, it's a religious argument, not a historical one.
Yeah.
Which, far be it for me. I read tarot cards and believe all kinds of fish on other people. So we all hold on to things that help us make sense of the world. But I just, in history, it's a different craft. So, but all that said, those debates are welcome, and I've gotten myself in so much trouble tonight. I'm
Play it on RFM.
Unfortunately, it's a live show.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's not like 500 people are watching or anything.
No, I think it's interesting that there's this idea out there that we are somehow censoring that. I have a bias against that viewpoint, but I am not the one that's doing the selection committee. We have a broad consensus. Whoever wants to come and present something, like I said, in good faith, bring it. And, everyone has to be respectful about it. So that goes with non-polygamy deniers as well.
There's always been more than one way to Mormon, right, Lindsay?
There's more than one way to Mormon. That's our tag.
Right.
Well, thanks for bringing us back on track.
It's not like this is the first crazy narrative a Mormon has believed.
I mean, I still it sneaks up on me, some of the stuff that I still believe. My favorite is the 3 Nephites. That one, I don't want to let that one die. I want to believe they're out there still somewhere.
Somebody's got to help you change a tire in the desert.
Right? Seriously, we joke about that, but I like thinking that somewhere they're out there, like helping some widow whose car broke down.
Bigfoot, Cain's not going to do it. So.
And they have beef jerky in the cave for you when you're crossing.
I love that one. Beef jerky. Yeah. I actually know a prophet that keeps beef jerky in the cave.
Is that right?
That's a Parowan prophet. He's got a cave full of 1,000-year-old food storage, and he showed up at Sunstone one time, brought me a cake made out of beef jerky. So.
What does he write on the jerky?
No, I didn't know beef jerky could be rancid until he made me a cake out of it, and I learned. And
1,000-year-old beef jerky.
Ooh.
It was funny. Do you guys know Anne Wilde? Do you know who she is?
No.
She's a famous sort of polygamous. She was married to Ogden Kraut, who was a polygamist, and she was a pro-polygamy advocate and just a really sweet woman. We disagreed on a lot of stuff, but she was a proponent of polygamy. And she was there at Sunstone, and Leland had rolled in and brought me this cake made out of beef jerky. And I was just like, what is this? And beef jerky is rancid. And she just said without a beat, like, oh, that's from his 1,000-year-old food storage. That guy eats hay. And I was like, okay, cool. So that's Sunstone. It's a lot more than that, but you definitely it's a wild ride. You never know what you're going to get. So.
Tainted meat.
Yeah. You got to save it for the end times.
Eating hay.
I don't know.
Any minute now.
Lindsay, this has been so much, I've got to say, more interesting than I expected. And I don't mean that as a diss on you. I thought you were just going to come out here and talk about Sunstone.
I was going to be
now
a
we're finding out. I want to ask you this question, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. And if it sounds like it has to do with, Michelle Stone, it doesn't. There are some people who think that it would be unseemly to debate the merits of flat Earth.
Mm-hmm.
We know that there are people out there that believe that the Earth is flat. We actually know that there's more people who believe the Earth is flat than that Joseph Smith was a prophet. But all these people who believe the Earth is flat, it's like there's nothing you can say to them that's going to change their mind because they're not interested in science. They're interested in the Earth being flat. And they'll use science, would you say, decorations. They'll decorate their arguments with science. It's really more parascience, I think, or pseudoscience is what they use. However, all I'm saying is this, is that normally you wouldn't allow somebody, I'm guessing, to come into Sunstone and talk about flat Earth or argue for it. Maybe you would, I don't know. Is there any similar feeling among people on the board there that polygamy deniers are the equivalent of flat earthers?
I don't know about because these are not the kind of discussions that we have with the board, but we have had similar discussions of it's an open forum. What are the limits to that? And there are things that we have said no to. White supremacy, we draw a line on those kind of things. For these ideas, I mean, people are welcome to present what they want, but there's always a Q&A after. So they're also, have to stand up to some scrutiny, to some peer pushback. And I think that that's what it comes down to. When we have people who will present religious arguments sometimes, and even thinking that those are scholarly arguments. And I think sometimes in our community those lines are blurred, especially if you grow up with a guy in your gospel doctrine class that seems very educated in scripture and sort of confuses the language of academia and religion. I think that that's pretty common, but I'm always for open dialogue. I think that that's why Sunstone's important, because it's not just the person who's presenting, it's the conversations that happen after. And so I would welcome those kind of conversations. I think the issue with that is I cannot necessarily protect your argument, though, if it's not a good argument, and I don't believe these arguments to be good arguments. I think you can base them because you feel, Mormonism is very based on how you feel. And as we know, any feeling you can attach a story to it. And if this is the narrative that helps you feel better, well, that's one thing. But when you're there with some of the best scholars in Mormonism and they push back, that's just going to be the natural consequence of that. And again, we encourage really thoughtful and respectful dialogue. And that happens the majority of the time. But that's what I would say. Come and give your argument, but be prepared to have it broken down. And that does happen sometimes. And I think that's probably why we haven't seen those presentations, because it's one thing to get on YouTube, and make claims. But then when you're interacting with people who have held these documents in their hands for years, I was saying this is kind of a side note, but Will Bagley, who is one of the best scholars on the Overland Trail that you'll get. Like, there's not a man that knows that time period better. He gets a lot of flack from the Mormon scholarly community he just really believed that Brigham Young ordered the Mountain Meadows Massacre. He never put that in writing, but he very strongly believed that. And so a lot of Mormon scholars have dismissed him because he doesn't have evidence. But, with someone like Will, who's been in Overland Trail stuff for decades, you pick up a language and a rhythm of this world that you're studying, and you just know things. And so that's a lot of scholars at Sunstone. And so if you're going to come with an argument based on scripture, I was ambushed, and I call it ambush. I was ambushed by a polygamy denier. I was coming out of a bathroom at Sunstone, and he was like, "Why don't you host us?" And I was like, "Tell me your best argument." And pretty quickly it got into scripture and angels. And I was just like, okay, like, this is now a testimony discussion. And like, that's different than a historical discussion. And I'm happy to have historical discussions, but like, I'm not going to talk you out of your faith. That's between you and whatever, like, just like you're not going to talk me out of my, tarot reading. Like, it's a game that I play. I'm not trying to push it on everyone else. And there is a line at Sunstone of conversion where you're not there to proselytize. And if you are, then that's probably not the place for you. That's a place for church. That's what church is for.
So to be clear, Sunstone has not received any proposals for presentations or papers from polygamy deniers.
Not overtly, no. I mean, I don't know individual things, but we have not. No, I mean, I think some of the spokespeople from that movement have claimed that they've been denied, and there's no record of any submissions, and that's the official stance.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. It's been great having you on the show, Lindsay.
Yeah, I got some hot gossip with it too. So
absolutely. We're going to be clipping this for TikToks.
I love it.
Oh no. Don't. She's already sweating about it.
I won't. Okay.
Take it easy.
They don't know how.
That's
all right. I believe in natural consequences, and these are mine. So
yeah. Have a great day.
All right. Talk to you guys later. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good.
You're great. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Well, that was incredible. I had no idea she was going to dish and then dish some more.
Yeah.
I hope Michelle Stone's not watching this. That's all I can say.
Yeah. Ooh.
Okay, so where were we? I was going to play a couple of clips.
Yeah, let's hear from
my favorite apostle and yours, Elder Cryring, as you said, Lila. Here's the first one. Now, this is just a little clip, and I think everybody should know this one. But this is from 2000, and I think it's 19. It's either 17 or 19 because I've got two clips, and one's from 17 and one's from 19. This is 17.
It takes faith to believe that he calls imperfect people into positions of trust. It takes faith to believe that he knows the people he calls perfectly, both their capacities and their potential, and so makes no mistakes in his calls. That may bring a smile or a shake of the head to someone in this audience. Some both who may think their own call to serve might have been a mistake, as well as those who picture some they know who seem poorly suited to their place in the Lord's kingdom, where that looks like a mistake. My counsel to both groups is to delay such judgments until you can better see what the Lord sees.
Your thoughts, Lila?
Oh, I just brought to mind the callings of certain people who molested children while they were serving as a bishop in their office that they were supposed to be interviewing. It brings to mind a specific scout leader that I know of who turned out to be a convicted pedophile and molested boys while in his calling as the scout leader, scoutmaster. It brings to mind a lot of other examples that I don't even have in front of me right now, but I know about because I've heard about it, where horrific things occurred in a position of a calling that was supposedly given by God to the leaders to call this person. There's a floodlit. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, these are all bishops here. These are all men who either the abuse occurred while they were serving as a bishop, or at least they served as a bishop at some point. But a lot of them occurred while the person was a bishop.
See? So, Elder Eyring, you're just wrong. You're just wrong. And if you want to maintain that position, you're going to have to answer to a higher judge. That's all I can say for what's happened while these people were in their calling, in their stewardship.
It's a strange message, Lila. So if I'm in the church, I'm sexually abused by a leader. What am I supposed to do with that when Elder Eyring says that God makes no mistakes? You might be over in the side smiling, you might be shaking your head, but shame on you. God makes no mistakes in his call. What that essentially says is that my Father in heaven who loves me put a child molester in a responsible position so that I could be sexually abused. And then I don't even know what I do with that. I don't even know how do I reconcile that? That makes no sense at all.
You can't reconcile that. That's going to do a number on your mind for the rest of your life. That it's just straight up wrong, and they refuse to admit when they're wrong. They won't do it. They will never apologize. They've made that very clear.
Well, not only is President Henry B. Eyring not going to apologize, 2 years later, he's going to repeat the same message in a bit of a different way. This one is not quite as well known as the first one, I think.
You may have been asked, or you will be, whether you sustain your bishop, stake president, the general authorities, and the general officers of the church. It may happen as you are asked to sustain officers and leaders in a conference. Sometimes it will be an interview with a bishop or stake president. My counsel to you is you ask those questions of yourself beforehand with careful and prayerful thought. As you do, you might look back on your recent thoughts, words, and deeds. Try to remember and frame the answers you will give when the Lord interviews you, knowing that he someday will. You could prepare by asking yourself questions like the following. 1, have I thought or spoken of the human weaknesses in the people I have pledged to sustain? 2, Have I looked for evidence that the Lord is leading them? 3, have I conscientiously and loyally followed their leadership? 4, have I spoken about the evidence I can see that they are God's servants? 5, do I pray for them regularly by name and with genuine love? Those questions will, for most of us, lead to some uneasiness and a need to repent.
Ugh. That's so bad. I'm
What's
sorry.
so bad about it?
Really triggering, because he's speaking like a cult leader. He's speaking like a Adolf Hitler. He's telling you not to listen to your internal alarms going off and question yourself instead of questioning what you're seeing with your own eyes and what you've experienced. Question your motives. Ask yourself, have you really listened and followed this bishop who happens to have sexually molested you or someone you know? It's unbelievable the tone deafness of this man. And he's just going to double down on that and let everybody squirm like worms on a hook. And he doesn't care. It's just wrong. I haven't heard either of those before. That's the first time. I probably stopped listening to the conference by this time. I don't know.
You should probably be wary of any person where every time they talk, they cry.
Yeah.
You probably ought to be very wary of that person and what their motivations are and what they're trying to do, because that nobody else on planet Earth does that.
No, he thinks he can manipulate you with his tears. That means he's very sincere and he really means it with his heart. So if you're not feeling it, you're not listening to the Spirit like he is. It's ridiculous. It's sickening, really. It's sickening. It makes me so angry. And, here's another example of that. I don't know if you have any other things to show, RFM.
No, that's it. That's as far as the clips go.
Okay, well, you could have put up a clip tonight of the pictures that I'm seeing all over the internet of Jesus gathering the little girls who drowned in the rivers in Texas. Have you seen them?
I haven't seen the pictures, but I've certainly been following the news story. It's catastrophic.
Yeah. And here's the thing, and some might say, well, what's wrong with that? That's sweet. It means Jesus is, comforting the children. No, what it means is the people in Texas had a drought. My sister lives right by San Antonio. She told me that their ward has been praying for rain.
It's the goddamn Mormons.
So they pray for rain, and that's how God answers them. He gives them more rain than they ever wanted and lets all those 100 and how many people
It's over 100
die.
now.
And lets those little children, 27 little girls, die.
And counselors.
So that's God answering the prayer. He had total control. He could have said, that's enough rain. Let's not let that happen. Okay, that's the God we're talking about. The God in that paintings that I've seen, gathering the little girls. And we're supposed to be like, oh, isn't that precious? No. Why did God answer that prayer in that manner? That's the manner that he answers. It just, if you can't see that, you're blind. Because this is not a God who clearly gives two rats' asses about these little children and their families. I can't even, it's just mind-boggling.
Lila, I know you went out and you collected these stories. I think RFM asked earlier how many stories are in here. I don't know if you answered that or not.
I don't even know how many. I need to count.
My question is, did any part of your personal story make it into the book? Is your story one of the stories?
No, it's not about me. This book isn't about me. I already did enough about me. This is other people. I definitely have added some of my thoughts. I've added some facts. I've added some doctrine that is problematic. Yeah, I definitely put my spin on it. So yeah, you're going to hear some of me, but it's not my story.
Yeah.
Per se.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there is the positive spin of this book also. It ends on a positive note, and it ends about how we move forward through all of this to find freedom and peace and joy in our lives. How do we do that? That's the question for the universe, right? And I think it's possible. It's definitely possible, but I don't think it happens without some effort on our part. So I talk a little bit about that too.
Bill, do we have anybody who is let's go ahead. Let's open up the lines. Can we do that?
Yeah, let me put the number up on the screen.
That, I just want to say one more thing. If you want, because I don't know who was watching when we started. If you want to get a copy of the book, I am going to be ordering them getting author's copies so I can give you a discount off of Amazon. It's going to be published on the 21st of July, which is coming up. In the between now and then, if you put your email in, not only will I give you a free ebook that you can download to your device, but I will also reach out to you, find out which one you want, whether you want the paperback or the hardback. I will sign it and I will ship it to you. We'll do a little PayPal transaction, and I'll get you the discount. But I would love to have as many people get the book and share it, because I think it's important. I think these are really, I don't know how comfortable people would be giving it to their TBM friends. Probably not, but I would appreciate the support so much. I'm one of those people who is trying to survive by my wits. And so I put a lot of effort into this.
Well, I'll just say it's up on the screen again. Lila's book, Shattered Trust, can be purchased early with that link there. It is in the synopsis down below the YouTube video here that you're watching it in. It's also posted, I think it's pinned to the top of the live chat, and I just put it in the live chat just a few seconds ago again as well. The book Shattered Trust can be purchased early with that link, so you can email Lila and she'll get you a hand-signed copy.
Thank you.
That's really great. Yeah. Folks, if you want to call the show 662-667-6667 or 662-Mormons, and you can ask Lila a question. I'll say, too, as people are starting to, call in or join the show by phone, you can also come into the studio, too. I'll give that link as well, and that's going into the chat right now. It's one thing if you happen to be at church and something inappropriate happens, and there are unhealthy people all over the planet, and unfortunately there are people out there who are abusers. But when you're abused and you blame the church, it's not because you just showed up at church and in some weird situation that nobody could have stopped, something happened. It's because the system sets up ways in which people get access to you in unsafe boundaries that they wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. And so when you have a book full of people who have been traumatized or abused, at least I think one of the goals of the book, Lila, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is to point out that this religion has so many unsafe spaces. And maybe if we sit and listen to enough stories and we go take the 20,000 foot view and go, let me look at the forest from the trees, maybe I can start to pick out why our faith has this problem prevalent in its culture more so than other religions that take greater care to ensure that healthy boundaries are taught and enforced, and that safe spaces are there preventing people from having access to the vulnerable. And any Mormon who just defends the church outright should take the time to read Lila's book and ask what are the common themes about these stories that these kinds of things continue to happen over and over again, and what could be done. And it's as simple as saying, the one we always go to is Sam Young, and saying, if Sam was allowed to have his way rather than be excommunicated, putting 2 adults in every room with a kid is going to have less sexual abuse, less manipulation, less unhealthy things being said than when you just let one solo guy show up in a room with a kid. And that's a fact, but we don't stop it. And we teach our members that the men speak for God, the men are called, the men need to be sustained. You don't criticize the men don't apologize. And then you ask yourself, why does abuse occur on a regular basis? And maybe that's the reason.
That's right. No checks and balances.
Yeah.
Nobody is saying, oops, this isn't good. Let's apologize and fix it. No, they're going to double down and say, no, that person was called of God. So that's the problem, is they refuse to say they were wrong. And when you have that kind of lack of not even just self-awareness of checks and balances built into this massive institution with millions of members, and nobody is looking out for the little people or just the run-of-the-mill members, it's a perfect scenario for it to run amok. It's like a petri dish for this. Go ahead, Arca.
It's almost as if putting an extra adult in the room would be the equivalent of suggesting that the church isn't really true.
That's right. That's right. Because, somebody else, unless, they decide, because there's enough outcry, then they will say, we received a revelation.
Yes.
And they'll pretend like God said it to them. They'll never say, you know what, there's been a lot of abuse and a lot of mishandling of stewardship, and we are going to make some changes. We are so sorry for the harm that has been caused. Please forgive us for making mistakes. That'll be the day. Hell will freeze over before that happens. But yet they ask us to do that. They teach us to repent and all of that, and to ask for forgiveness. They don't keep their own rules.
No, and that becomes more and more apparent as events unfold. Lila, we've got somebody on the phone with a question, I think, for you.
Let me hit that. Caller, what's the name? Hello? Give me just a second. I'm going to try to make that come on. We run into this problem once in a while. I don't know why it happens. Let's see here.
So I don't know if Bill's going to try and put through his phone or what, but
yeah, we're gonna try again here and see if this works. Caller, what's the name? Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can barely hear you. It sounds like you're right up against the mic or your phone.
Hold on, let me get my quieter place. Let's see.
What's the name?
Let's see. Hold on. Let me try to get back to my
That's
phone.
pretty good. That's pretty good. What's the name?
My name is Richard Holmes.
Okay. What's the question, Richard?
oh no, not Richard Holmes. God help us. Jesus Christ, Richard, what are you calling about, my friend?
What's your question?
I want to know why people are trying to say that Joseph Smith mistranslated the Pili characters when he never did.
Because he did. He mistranslated them horribly, as any Egyptologist knows, whether
Richard.
arrogant or otherwise. Richard, come on, get with the program. Wake up.
Richard, the topic tonight is what it is, and you're calling it about something completely different, which shows that you have no wherewithal at all.
No, you don't, because hear me out. You're all comparing the facsimiles.
And Moses opposes his toes as a roses.
Why is it okay?
That's hilarious.
Why are you on the phone talking about facsimiles right now?
Yeah.
He's not anymore, is he?
Having a
He's
beer.
gone, right?
No,
He went
got-
bye-bye.
Yeah, he went bye-bye immediately.
Yeah, Richard Holmes is this guy. He's like the one acolyte of this other guy who came up with this crazy ass way of saying all the Egyptologists in the world are wrong.
All of
Okay.
them. Every one
All
of them.
the Egyptologists say that Joseph Smith really wasn't translating Egyptian.
Including Mormon apologists.
Yeah, they're all wrong because this one guy who's not an Egyptologist, who may or may not even exist. All I've ever seen is his acolyte go around and talking about the wonders of this other person. And I can't remember who is it Gregson or something? Something Paul Gregson, wasn't it? Yeah, Paul Gregson. Thank you. Paul Gregerson. He's supposed to be this whiz or something who is not an Egyptologist, but he knows more than all the Egyptologists in the world combined. And so this guy runs around saying, oh my gosh, Paul Gregerson, he's so amazing. And why do the arrogant Egyptologists not, deal with this crazy guy, Paul Gregerson? And I mean that in a non-liability kind of way.
There's one guy in the world who says a thing and then you adopt it and everyone else says it's wrong and you think you're the smartest guy in the room.
Right.
But that's part of the psychology.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of the psychology of being on the inside of the secret and thereby gaining specialness that those outside of the secret don't have. And it's what makes conspiracy theories work.
Yes.
It's what makes a lot of things work. What
what
makes
we got.
fundamentalist religions
Yes.
work.
That's how Mormonism got started, was a guy like that.
Yeah.
Who refused to listen to logic or reason and continued to say God was speaking to him, and don't worry about how insane it is. Just believe me. An angel appeared to me with the drawn sword, so you need to do what I say.
Absolutely. Well, we've got another person on the phone. This one, I'm sure will have a question for you, unless it's Paul Gregerson.
Caller, what's the name?
Hi, Parker Baldwin.
Parker Baldwin.
I've texted you a few times.
How are you, Parker?
I'm doing well tonight. Hey, I just wanted to share with Lila that when I was a teenager back in 1970, my girlfriend and I did some soaking, but I got my patriarchal blessing. One of the first things my patriarch said, I've been forgiven of all I've done. So the church didn't want me to be a missionary, and I brought that blessing to her father's attention when he was there interviewing at a state conference, and I ended up going to the UK.
So in other words, you were forgiven by virtue of a patriarchal blessing, and you took advantage of that to go on a mission unworthily.
I took advantage of it so I wouldn't have to be in rice paddies in Vietnam.
He was only
70, of course, right.
People soak to avoid breaking the law of chastity, RFM.
I know, but I tell you, yes, I won't talk about soaking in rice paddies, okay?
Okay.
Although the two seem to go together.
Thought that was good.
Parker, I'm glad that you went. Were you able to escape the draft completely though? Because it was still going on when you got back, right?
Yeah, it was, and I went to school after that, and I had my institute director was he wrote an insider's view of Mormonism. He was my director at
Grant
Palmer. Yeah, we had long discussions, and I'd sure like to talk about that with y'all sometime.
This is back in the 70s?
Yes, yeah. He was the institute director at the college I was in from 72. I went on my mission from 70 to 72 in the UK. And I came back, and lo and behold, he's my institute director. So we had lots of discussions. And some of the topics you loved, RFM, like the Adam God doctrine, as he called it.
Yeah, it's true. It used to be a doctrine. Then it became a theory. Then it became nothing.
Yeah.
You should call on Friday night, Mormonism After Dark, and we'd love to hear a few of those stories.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
Can you do that? Do you know about our show, Mormonism After Dark on Friday? Do you know about that show?
I'm in the Eastern time zone, so it's up really after dark.
10 p.m.
It's almost dawn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Take it easy.
It's a date.
Take it easy.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Are you guys still doing Mormonism After Dark this Friday?
Yes, as far as I know. Is there something that I'm conflicting
When
with?
is Sunstone? Isn't that this weekend?
It's the last. We got 3 more weeks, I think, in July. 3
Oh,
more
I
full
was thinking
weeks.
it was this coming week. Maybe I can still get in.
No. Oh, that would be great if you could.
I thought it was coming up. Okay. One thing I wanted to say, in addition to what we talked about, is in the book. Some of the themes are really basic tenets of the church that actually are very abusive. Okay. They're not somebody getting molested or somebody getting, they're basic tenets that we just take for granted are normal.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get on the outside and you see it with fresh eyes, you realize, oh, it's not normal. This is controlling, coercive, abusive, manipulative. Telling people, for instance, when you go through the temple, that you need to give your time, your talents, and everything with which the Lord has blessed you, even your own lives, if necessary,
Mm-hmm.
to the building of the kingdom. And you raise your arm to the square and bow your head and say yes. And basically what you're doing is signing away all your rights to your life. And you're handing it over to the Mormon church. So that right there is unbelievably coercive and controlling and abusive. You're taking away everyone's autonomy in one setting, and you're doing it by covenant so that you can then twist that knife if they ever say they don't want to do it. That's signing your life over to Jim Jones. So and we did it without thinking. At least most of us did that went through the temple. It was like
without knowing what it's going to be.
You didn't know until you did it once, and then you were like, oh.
Then you're on the hook.
That's right. And then they want you to keep going, keep coming back as many times as you can. We need you. And each time you're cementing that into your psyche.
Those oaths are taken before God, angels, and these witnesses at this altar.
That's right. And so they can, and then there's the threat of, when you reach the pearly gates, you have to give those signs and tokens to pass the angels that are posted as sentinels at the gates.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about what they're doing, and it's all smoke and mirrors. So it's just that part right there. I actually interviewed Natasha, and she is chapter 3. Our interview is is chapter 3. And she goes into, I just let her talk. I mean, I literally just gave the mic over to her and let her talk about what the problem is with the church. And, I don't know if you know, everyone, Natasha is an excommunicated sex therapist. And she's been out, I think it might be about 5 years now. But, they kicked her out because she talked about healthy sexuality, and they didn't like it. But she talks about how the abuse starts in the very beginning, when you become a member and you're baptized. It starts right then, because they set up an abusive system where, in order to get love and blessings and a life after death with your family, you have to follow these rules. Or if you break any of those rules, you forfeit the right to have your family with you for eternity. For eternity. It's not a little punishment. It's an eternal punishment. And, Joseph Smith played with words, but.
Stay away from that coffee.
Right? Yeah. If you drink coffee, remember, what was the name of the woman?
I can't remember, but that's what I was referencing.
Yeah. She said, you're forfeiting your eternal salvation for that one cup of coffee.
I think she was talking about her grandmother or something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. because her grandmother liked coffee or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just it's absolutely ridiculous. It just is, and we didn't think, like, we were so ingrained in it from the day we were, well, at least me. I was born in it. And my parents are saying that it's true. And so I'm going, okay, mommy and daddy. So you're telling me that if I don't keep all these commandments, I'm going to be put in a kingdom where I can't be with you or any of my family? What does that do to a child who is human and who's going to be making mistakes? And but you can repent, but you got to make sure you repent of everything. What about those times you forgot to repent? What's going to happen? You know, these things scare children. This is a frightening, and we have a Satan. You know, Natasha was talking about that. We have a devil that is trying to get us, is trying to tempt us and pull us away from God. And we better not listen to the devil, or we're going to end up in hell burning for eternity and not be with our loved ones. It's such a fear tactic, and it starts as little tiny kids. So no wonder we're all screwed up.
Yeah. Yep. I've got the last phone call here.
Yes. One more phone call.
Here we go. So, caller, what's the name?
My name is Carter.
Carter, welcome to Mormonism.
May I withhold my last name?
No, you don't. You don't have to say that. What's welcome to the show. What's your question?
So, I just wanted to ask Lila, tell her thank you for all of the interviews and sharing her story. Really briefly, come from my background in the church was, after my mission was like ultra conservative before becoming nuanced, and now physically and mentally out. But her just interview, like when I was in that very really fundamentalist space, we were, one of the names we really looked up to was Hartman Rector Jr. And we would tell stories about him, and a lot of us knew him, and I met him, and there was this aura about him. So your interviews with him, or sharing your stories about him, were very helpful and deconstructing for me. And I kind of wanted to ask you about if, in hindsight, if you see any kind of spiritual power or any kind of awe or mystery in your father or any of the people that you knew, or is it just all kind of really, how do you see it in hindsight now?
That's a really that's a good question. For me, my dad was my dad. I never had a sense of awe, really, other than I loved him. I admired him. I thought he was amazing. In the way that a daughter thinks about their dad. I knew that he wasn't perfect. I saw him make mistakes all the time. He had a bad temper. He wasn't always nice. He was rough sometimes, but I loved him. I adored my dad. And I think that now, looking back, if that's what you're asking, is how I feel now. I think my dad he joined before, the internet. He joined as an adult and by reading the Book of Mormon. And that is where he got his testimony. It was from reading the Book of Mormon. And he loved that book. And he was a great missionary. He tried to baptize everyone in his family. Nobody joined except for his Aunt Lila, who I was named after. But as looking back, I see him as a maverick, as an entrepreneur in his family. He didn't, he was like Joseph Smith in that way. He didn't join any of the churches that his siblings had joined or his parents had joined. He wanted to find the truth. And he thought he had found the truth in Mormonism. And so he played it like that with us kids. It was, hey, I've done the work for you. You don't need to look. I found it. I found the truth. This is it. And I know it sounds like a crazy story, but it's true. And I know it. And he would bear his testimony and cry. It wasn't like crying, but he would have tears, you know, and it would just, you know, I believed my dad. I believed him and I respected him. And I think he really believed it was true. I think if he knew now, or maybe he does in some way, wherever he is, if he knew everything that's come out on the internet, I think he would be very, very sad. And I think he would realize that it wasn't true, because for him, it was about being true. It wasn't, oh, I like going to church because I could hang out with my friends and we can sing songs. No, he believed it was true. So I think, you know, once you realize it's not true, then you have a choice to make, right? And I think he would choose to do the right thing. Does that answer your question?
That answers amazing. Just a quick follow-up if I can. Do you see the other leaders having the same sort of like commitment to truth as your dad, or do you see him as different?
I think there might be some. It's hard to say, you know, they play the game. I think, how could they not know? Because it's out there now, you know, how could they not know their problems? I think some of them believe no matter what, in spite of, because they have the privilege, right? To leave or to claim that they don't believe would mean to give up too much. It would be, you know what I mean? Their whole life is built on this, and they have respect, and they have money, and they have power, and they have authority, and all of that. It would be a lot to give up. So even if they do kind of know, they're never going to say it. They'll just take it to the grave. So it's kind of hard to know for sure, right? Especially when they all play the game.
Yeah. Thank you, caller. Thank you for the questions.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day.
Good night, Carter. Lila, thank you so much for being here on the show tonight. The book is...
My pleasure.
What is the book? It's Shattered Trust.
Trust. Yes.
I'm so glad you came up with that title, because I had come up with a title for the show. It was called Spiritual Abuse. And it's like, it just becomes hackneyed after a while. We talk so much spiritual abuse, this, spiritual abuse, that, not trying to diminish it. It's just that we keep saying the term. And then you came up with this title, Shattered Trust. How did you come up with that title, by the way?
You know, it just came to me because you know how we talk about our shelves breaking? And I thought my shelf was, I had trust that it was true. I trusted everyone that around me that taught me this church, taught me this religion, that they were right. And I believed it, and I had implicit trust. And when that came down and shattered all over the ground, the image on the book shows rubble in front of a woman looking at this rubble. And then there is the transparency of the temple behind it, suggesting that what was once this beautiful moniker, or that's not the right word, emblem, thank you, of truth and beauty and everything, is now a pile of rubble that I don't know what to do with this. What do I do with this? And in a way, I feel that I have triumphed over that, because I found out, and I'm so glad I found out, because it isn't altruistic and it isn't good. It's harmful. Even though they have this shiny veneer that makes it look great, it's really not. When you peel back the layers of old wallpaper and you get down to the plaster wall underneath that's cracked and has mold growing, that's what we're dealing with. That's the truth of it.
Yeah, and then you pry the plaster and lathe off, and then you got bodies that are stuck in the wall.
Bodies in there.
Yeah. the deeper you go, the prettier it doesn't get.
Yeah, I don't have the stories of all the LGBTQ kids that took their lives.
Yeah. Well, once again, thank you so much. This book's going to be great. Please use the link, everybody. Go pre-order the book. It's going to be great. Take advantage of this wonderful 15%. Can you believe it? Discount that members of our audience get. Nobody else does. So don't tell anybody else about this link, okay? Only our audience gets to know about it. Thank you again, Lila. And everybody, thanks for watching.
Thanks so much. You guys
Thanks, Bill, Thank you, Bill, for covering everything behind the scenes like you always do. You're amazing. And everybody, please join us on Friday night, 8:00 p.m. Utah time for another episode of Mormonism After Dark. 6 o'clock the following Monday for the Mormon Newscast, and then Around the Horn again next Wednesday, 6:00 p.m. for another incredible episode of Mormonism Live. Thanks for joining us. Good night.
Good night, everybody.